Hello, everyone. Tonight we will be not scrolling, not skipping, not pretending. Tonight, we are sitting in the middle of something quiet. Not just outside, but inside. The kind of quiet that hums behind the walls. The kind that fills a room. Even when the room is full, there's a soft light next to me. A lamp I've always loved. Golden glow, warm edges. But tonight, even that light feels different. Dimmer, maybe. Or maybe it's just me. Because I've been holding something sharp. And tonight, I want to let it go. This is not a story about heartbreak, not in the usual sense. It's about something deeper. Trust. And what happens when you hand it over to someone who doesn't deserve it? She was my best friend, my mirror, my anchor. And she tore everything apart. Quietly, beautifully, without even raising her voice. But we'll get there. For now, before we begin, I want to ask something simple. If you're here, really here, take a moment to like the video, subscribe too, but only if these stories, the slow ones, the quiet ones, the honest ones, mean something to you. And if you don't mind, tell me where you're watching from, and what time it is for you right now. I always wonder, who else is out there, sitting in the dark, listening to strangers tell truths? Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan, something soft in the background. And let's get going, tonight. We met when we were 12, 7th grade, homeroom. She was the new girl. Messy ponytail, oversized hoodie, eyes that scanned the room like she didn't trust a soul. I remember she sat 2 seats behind me. I remember the silence that followed her. And I remember how I wanted to break it. So I turned around, introduced myself. She barely looked up, but I caught it. The tiniest smile. That was the beginning. We didn't fall into friendship. We built it, slowly. Lunch after lunch, joke after joke. 2 lonely girls in a sea of lockers and fluorescent lights. She told me things no one else knew. And I told her things I didn't even know I needed to say. Secrets, crushes, fights with parents, tears in the bathroom stall. We shared all of it. By the end of that year, people called us the twins. We wore matching necklaces, made up ridiculous nicknames. We even planned to go to the same college. And for a long time, we meant it. We had sleepovers where we'd fall asleep laughing. We'd dream out loud, make lists of everything we'd do with our lives. She wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a teacher. But what we both wanted, more than anything, was to never lose each other. And back then, I believed we never would. I really did. She wasn't just my best friend. She was my chosen person, the one who always showed up. Until one day, she didn't. She was my sister, in every way except blood. We grew up together, from awkward braces and borrowed clothes, to college dorms and cramming for finals at 2 a.m. She knew my favorite songs before I did. She could finish my sentences, and I could read her silence like a second language. When my dad left, she was the first one to come over. She didn't say anything at first. She just sat next to me, in my bedroom, on the floor, as I stared at the wall. And then she reached over, took my hand, and said, "He's an idiot, but I'm not going anywhere." And she never did. When I got my first heartbreak, she brought ice cream. When I failed a class, she made flashcards. When my mom was diagnosed, she stayed up with me every night, just so I wouldn't fall apart alone. People used to say, "You're so lucky to have her." And I was. Or, I thought I was. She was at every birthday, every family gathering, every late-night drive where we talked about life like we had it all figured out. She saw me, the version I kept hidden from the world, the scared version, the version that didn't know who I was yet. And I saw her too. We dreamed together, talked about getting an apartment in the city, building lives where we'd still be in each other's orbit, no matter how busy life got. She even joked that she'd be my maid of honor one day. And I laughed, because of course she would. There was no universe where she wouldn't be. But some betrayals don't arrive with thunder. They creep in quietly, behind shared memories and half-finished cups of coffee. and you only notice it when it's already too late. Moving in together felt inevitable. Two best friends, fresh out of college, armed with degrees, ambition, and mismatched furniture, ready to take on the city. We found a tiny apartment above a bakery. The rent was ridiculous. The walls were thin. But to us, it was perfect. We painted the living room ourselves, mint green with gold accents, hung string lights across the ceiling, split the bills, laughed when the sink wouldn't drain. We made a life. Together. She got a job at a local magazine. I started teaching elementary school. Our schedules were opposite, but our routines always found a way to intertwine. Tuesday night wine, Sunday morning brunch, Thursday dance parties in pajamas. It was chaos, the good kind. But even in all that joy, there were moments. She'd get quiet when I talked about work, roll her eyes when I mentioned my boyfriend, borrow things without asking, forget to pay her half of the electric bill. Little things, small scratches. I told myself it was normal, that even sisters bicker. Still, I started noticing how she kept score, which nights she cleaned, which favors she did, like she was measuring every ounce of effort. And sometimes, when we argued, she'd throw those things back at me, like a receipt. It was the first time I saw something behind her smile, something tight, something calculating, but I brushed it off, because I loved her, and she was my person. You don't just walk away from that. Or so I thought. I didn't know then that the walls we painted together would one day close in on me, that our tiny apartment, our safe space, would become the very place I learned what betrayal feels like when it wears your best friend's face. I met him on a rainy Wednesday. Cliché, I know. Umbrellas clashing, papers flying. The kind of meet cute that belongs in movies, not grocery store parking lots. But there he was. Soft voice, warm eyes, a smile that felt steady. His name was Jason. And from the beginning, he didn't try to impress me. He just listened. Really listened. It felt different. Safe. Like I could take a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. When I told her about him, she smiled. Said, "Finally! Someone who's not a walking disaster." We both laughed. But something in her tone stuck to me. Still, I invited her in. We all went out. Movies, dinners, long walks. She and Jason got along, maybe too well. Sometimes she'd cut me off mid-story, finish my sentences before I could. At first, I thought she was just excited. Then I noticed he started turning to her when I spoke. Just little glances, tiny shifts, moments I wanted to pretend didn't exist. She started joking about him, calling him Prince Charming. Once, she said, "If you don't lock this one down, I will." We both laughed, but mine was forced. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was being paranoid. But sometimes, when I walked into the apartment, they'd be sitting too close, too quiet. And when I asked what they were talking about, they'd exchange a glance, that silent kind, like I wasn't in on the joke. Still, I didn't want to accuse. Didn't want to seem insecure. Didn't want to believe that the two people I trusted most were slowly pulling something apart behind my back. But I could feel it. That strange pressure in the air, like standing on a bridge that doesn't creak, but you know it's about to collapse. And I was right. It started with the little things, moments that didn't make sense, until they did. I'd say something to Jason in private, and later, she'd bring it up, casually, like she'd heard it herself. But she hadn't. She wasn't there. No one was. Once, I told him I was thinking about applying for a fellowship, a secret I hadn't shared yet. The next day, she asked, "So, when are you announcing your big career move?" She smiled when she said it, but my heart dropped. I brushed it off, told myself maybe Jason slipped. Maybe she guessed. Maybe it was a coincidence. But then it happened again, and again. Things I only told him found their way to her, and things I only told her showed up in conversations with him, with strange new twists. And then came the silences, the sudden pauses when I walked into the room, the jokes I didn't understand, the dinners where I felt like a third wheel in my own relationship. I started feeling like a guest in a life I had built. She made comments that stung, just enough to seem like teasing, but always with a bite. Like, "You've never been the organized one, have you?" Or, "Jason says I have better taste in music than you." Always with a laugh, always with a shrug. And I always let it slide, because I couldn't believe it, because I didn't want to. But the truth was slipping through the cracks, and I was just standing there, trying to hold it all together with shaking hands. Until one night, something snapped, and I realized I couldn't keep pretending, couldn't keep smiling through the tension, couldn't keep doubting myself just to protect their lies. I had to know, even if the answer broke me, even if it meant facing the very thing I was most afraid to believe. It was 2:11 a.m. I remember, because the numbers glowed on the microwave. Bright, blue, almost mocking. I couldn't sleep. Again. Jason had gone home hours earlier. My friend was asleep in her room, door slightly open, fan whirring like a lullaby. I sat on the couch in the dark, blanket wrapped around my knees, heart pounding in my ears. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that I was letting insecurity win. But somewhere deep down, I already knew. And that knowing pushed me off the couch like a force outside myself. I walked quietly. Each step felt like betrayal. But not mine. Heron. Her phone was on the charger, face down, screen dim. Unlocked. No password. She never thought I'd look. My fingers were shaking, but I picked it up. And what I saw sliced through me like ice. Text after text. Jason. Late at night. Early in the morning. Some harmless, some not. But then, screenshots of my messages. Private things I'd told her. Mocked. Analyzed. A photo of the anniversary gift I had planned for Jason. Captioned, "She still thinks he's into her LOL." And then, the worst. A message from 2 weeks ago. From him. "I wish I'd met you first." I stopped breathing. Time cracked. I couldn't feel my legs. I sat on the edge of her bed as she slept. This girl I had trusted with my life. And for the first time in years, I saw her not as my best friend, but as a stranger. A stranger who had been living in my house, in my heart, wearing my trust like a costume. I left her room silently, phone in hand, tears blurring everything, and I knew, no matter what came next, nothing would ever be the same again. The sun hadn't even risen yet when I decided I was done pretending. I waited. I sat at the kitchen table, hands clenched around her phone, until the sky turned gray and the silence of morning crept through the windows. She patted in around 7 a.m., barefoot, hair messy, still rubbing sleep from her eyes. She smiled when she saw me, said, "You're up early." And I didn't answer. Just slid her phone across the table, face up, screen open, messages staring back like ghosts. She stopped. Everything about her face changed. Her smile dropped, shoulders tightened, eyes darted. First to the phone, then to me. "Where did you find that?" she whispered. But I didn't let her lead the conversation. Not this time. "Tell me the truth," I said. My voice was low but steady. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." She started crying. Theatrical. Or maybe real. I didn't care anymore. She said she was lonely, that Jason made her feel seen, that I was always distracted, always busy, always putting my career first. She blamed me for the space she had crawled into, for the loyalty she had burned, for the man she kissed while I was in the next room. Every word out of her mouth felt like poison, dipped in sugar. "I didn't sleep with him," she said, and I laughed. Actually laughed, because it didn't matter anymore. What she did, what she didn't. The betrayal had already happened. She had cracked open the trust between us and danced in the rubble. I told her to move out. She protested, said she had nowhere to go. And for a brief second, I almost softened. But then I remembered all the nights I defended her, protected her, loved her, when she was turning the knife. And I said, "You made that choice. Now live with it." She left that night, threw everything into garbage bags, didn't say goodbye. The door slammed, and I sat in that silence, finally alone, but not free, not yet. The apartment didn't feel like home anymore. Not after that. Her scent still lingered on the couch cushions. Her coffee mug sat in the sink for days. And every time I opened the hallway closet, I half expected her to yell, "You're stepping on my shoes again!" But there was no voice. Just echoes. Jason tried to call. Once. Maybe twice. I didn't answer. What was left to say? He didn't fight for me, didn't show up, didn't even try to explain. And maybe that hurt the most. Not the cheating, not the messages, but the silence. The quiet confirmation that I had loved someone who never had the courage to love me back. Not fully. The days blurred. I still went to work, still smiled for the kids, still picked up groceries and watered the plants she forgot existed. But I was moving through fog, number heavy, haunted. Friends reached out, asked if I was okay. I told them I was just tired. The lie came easier than I thought. The hardest part? It wasn't missing Jason, or even her. It was mourning a version of myself that no longer existed. The version that believed loyalty was enough, that trust couldn't be misplaced, that love, platonic or romantic, was simple if your heart was good. But I was learning, painfully, that goodness is not a shield, and love is not always returned just because you gave it honestly. Nights were the worst. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering our laughter, our stupid inside jokes, the way we used to dance in the kitchen when rent was due and the fridge was empty, but we had each other. Now, the silence was unbearable. It was in that quiet I realized I wasn't just grieving a breakup. I was grieving a sisterhood, a chosen family, a home that no longer wanted me in it. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know where I belonged. You'd think betrayal would be enough, that the lies, the messages, the slow collapse of trust would mark the final page. But she wasn't done, not yet. A month had passed. The apartment was quiet, cleaner, colder. I was still piecing myself together, still learning how to breathe without flinching. Then one morning, I opened an email from the landlord. Subject: urgent, rent payment discrepancy. My stomach dropped. According to them, 2 months' rent hadn't been paid, not 1, 2. I blinked, scrolled back through my receipts. Everything was there, everything I had paid. And then I saw it. She had withdrawn our rent funds, the money I had sent her for her portion, transferred it into her own account. She had never paid it. Not since the month before she left. $2,000. Gone. She left me with the bill, the penalty, the shame. And when I called her, because yes, I called her, just once, do you know what she said? Honestly, I thought you'd be fine. You always land on your feet. Just like that. Like it was a compliment. Like it wasn't theft. Like it wasn't one final nail in a coffin she built with years of fake smiles and whispered lies. I ended the call, blocked her, and this time I didn't cry. I filed a report, wrote to the landlord, paid what I had to, cleaned up the mess she left behind, just like I always did. But something had changed. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I was furious, not just at her, but at myself, for ignoring the signs, for giving and giving until there was nothing left but silence and overdraft fees. She crossed the final line, and I let her. But not again. Never again. Because the worst kind of betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the people you would have sworn would never ever hurt you. And when they do, it's a lesson you never forget. Starting over sounds brave. Empowering. Like something you'd see printed on a coffee mug in gold cursive. But let me tell you, it's not brave at first. It's terrifying. I moved out 2 weeks after the rent fiasco, packed everything I owned into boxes that felt heavier than they should have. I cried when I took down the photos of us from the fridge, laughed bitterly when I found the friendship bracelet she made me in college, sat on the floor in the middle of an empty living room, and let it all crash down at once. It wasn't just the apartment I was leaving, it was a version of my life. One built on shared toothbrush holders, inside jokes, and 1,000 moments that used to mean everything. I moved into a small studio apartment across town. It had ugly beige carpet, a flickering hallway light, and smelled faintly of someone else's leftovers. But it was mine. No ghosts, no lies, no her. I started therapy. For the first time in my life. And on that couch, with a stranger who didn't flinch at my tears, I began to unravel everything. The patterns, the people-pleasing, the way I always made myself small to keep the peace. I journaled. Pages and pages, some angry, some heartbroken, all of them honest. I stopped talking about her, stopped stalking her social media, stopped asking mutual friends how she was doing. I let her go. Not all at once, but slowly. With each day, I chose to breathe for myself, not for the version of me she had built. I started meeting new people, tentatively, carefully. Not everyone is her. I had to remind myself that more times than I'd like to admit. But little by little, I believed it. Healing is quiet. It's not loud or cinematic. It's in the mornings you make your own coffee and smile, because you realize you finally like the silence. It's in the nights you sleep through without nightmares. In the weekends you fill with things you love. Books, plants, long walks, messy art projects. It's when you stop waiting for an apology that will never come, and realize you're still here, still standing, still you. It was a Tuesday, just another forgettable day. Until it wasn't. I was leaving the grocery store, arms full of produce and oat milk, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no voicemail, just a single missed call. I ignored it, until it happened again. And again. Same number, same silence. On the fourth try, I answered. And there it was. Her voice, shaky, stripped of the armor I once knew. Hey, long pause. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I didn't speak, not right away. I let her twist in the silence she had once forced on me. I lost my job. Jason's gone. Everyone's gone. I don't know what to do. It was surreal. Hearing her speak like a child again, like the girl I used to protect, not the woman who tore my world apart. She didn't ask to be forgiven, not directly. She just kept talking, about how things had fallen apart, how she didn't mean for it to happen like this, how she thought I was stronger than to let it ruin us. That line, it hit me hard, as if it was me who had failed the friendship, as if my pain was just proof I wasn't strong enough to swallow betrayal whole and smile anyway. But I said nothing, just breathed. Let her hear the quiet on my end of the line. Can we talk? She asked. Just talk? And I paused. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted closure, but because part of me wanted to see her face. Not for her, for me. To remind myself of how far I'd come since the day she left me shattered on that kitchen floor. So I said yes. Not because I trusted her, but because I no longer needed to. We met at a quiet cafe near the river. Neutral ground, a place where the past couldn't cling to the walls. I arrived first, chose a seat by the window, ordered tea, watched strangers pass, each one carrying a life I'd never know. And for the first time, I was okay with not knowing. She walked in wearing a sweater I recognized, one I had loaned her 3 winters ago. She hadn't changed much, same hair, same walk, but something in her eyes was dimmer. She sat down slowly, like the chair might betray her too. Thanks for coming, she whispered. I nodded, said nothing. There was a long pause, the kind that makes your bones ache. Then she spoke. I've lost a lot, she said, her voice cracked. My job, my apartment. Jason's gone too. I didn't flinch, didn't ask why, didn't ask how. I just waited. I've been thinking about what I did, she continued, and I know saying sorry isn't enough, but I wanted to say it anyway. I'm sorry. For all of it. The words hung there. Software unsteady. I looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, I saw the girl I once knew. The one I stayed up with until sunrise. The one who held my hand when my world first cracked. But I also saw the woman who lit the match, who watched my world burn and called it a mistake. "I believe you're sorry," I said, and I meant it. But that wasn't the same as forgiveness. She waited, for more. For a crack in the wall, for a smile, for a door to open. It didn't. "I don't hate you," I told her. "I just don't know you anymore." She nodded, didn't argue, didn't cry. We finished our drinks in silence. She left first. Didn't hug me, didn't look back. And when the door closed behind her, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for 3 years.
People often ask, what happened to her after that? Did she rebuild? Did she change? Did you two ever make peace? The answer is complicated. And also, no. After that coffee shop meeting, I never saw her again. I heard whispers, through mutual friends, that she moved back home, that she bounced between jobs, that Jason, well, he vanished too, as quickly as he had appeared in our lives, like smoke, like a lesson dressed as a man. She lost more than me. She lost her network, her reputation, the gentle belief others once had in her goodness. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just ruin a friendship. It ruins who you were in that person's story. And sometimes, in your own. I don't hate her, not anymore. But I don't wish her well either. I wish her truth. I hope she wakes up in the quiet and finally listens to herself. Not the version she built to be adored, but the broken one that needs repair. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that some people betray you, not because they're evil, but because they're lost. And in their panic to find themselves, they shatter the people closest to them. She shattered me, but only once, and I rebuilt, piece by piece, with better boundaries, with clearer eyes, with deeper kindness, but never at my own expense again. Because loving someone doesn't mean handing them the blade, and forgiveness doesn't require reunion. I kept the memories, yes, the real ones, the good ones, the nights we danced barefoot in the living room, the talks under starlit windows, the time she braided my hair when I was too sad to speak. But I don't reach for them anymore. I don't need to. She lost me, and I lost her. But I found something else in the wreckage, something she never could have given me. Myself. Whole, unapologetic, and free. It's quiet now. Not the kind of quiet that aches, but the kind that heals. Software still. Whole. And as I sit here with nothing left to prove, I want to say something that took me years to understand. Betrayal doesn't define you. It reveals them. What she did. The lies, the secrets, the final cruelty of pretending love while sharpening a knife. That was never about me. It was about her. Her insecurity. Her need to be wanted at any cost. Her fear that love was a competition she could only win by stealing. And Jason? He was never mine to begin with. Not really. You can't lose what was never anchored. You can't mourn what was only passing through. What I lost wasn't just a best friend, or a boyfriend, or even a home. What I lost was my innocence. The belief that love alone is enough to keep someone loyal. But what I gained was clarity, strength, and a deeper understanding of the kind of love I deserve, the kind that doesn't come with terms, the kind that doesn't need secrets, the kind that doesn't leave you empty. If you've ever been betrayed by a friend, a partner, a family member, I want you to know you are not weak for trusting. You are not foolish for loving. You are not broken for grieving. You are simply human. And being human hurts sometimes, but it also heals. With time, with truth, with boundaries, with care. And tonight, as this story draws to a close, I want to thank you for sitting here with me, for listening, for remembering that stories like these, the painful ones, can also be bridges. If this story resonated with you, if it made you feel less alone, or simply reminded you that your voice matters, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing this space with someone who needs it. Your support makes stories like this possible. Stories that hold space for truth, and maybe a little healing too. Good night, my friend, and wherever you are, be gentle with yourself, because healing doesn't ask for perfection, only honesty, only breath, only you. End of script. Good night.